Broadcasting by way of Gallifrey. Stand by for podcast. This is Voices from the Vortex.
Voices from the Vortex review. Series 8, Episode 5. Time Heist.
Well, it looks like it's time to start this review.
It's the time review.
And unlike other reviews that we have done, this will not be done out of order, though it should be.
Yes, it should.
This one should be done all timey-wimey.
My name is Taylor, and I agreed to do this podcast of my own accord.
My name is Matthew, and I agree to do this podcast of my own accord. Though it turns out I didn't have to touch the memory worm. I could just delete my brain space.
Yeah, I had like a hammer and I just hit myself really hard a couple times.
I forgot the last 2 minutes and all the second grade.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
It is, we're going to talk about Series 8, Episode 5, Time Heist.
This season is starting to truck along. It started off slow, but it is really getting some steam. Like, it is picking up, and I'm excited. This was such a fun episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think ever since Robot of Sherwood, this season has really picked up. Deep Breath was good. It was a good... There were some really good moments, like, of the, you know, it's his first episode, and so there's some good Capaldi moments in there. Mm-hmm. But overall... You know, the whole story with the droids and all
dark,
that.
It was very slow.
It was okay, yeah, it was a little slow. Yeah. But Robots of Sherwood, and then Listen, which we talked about last week, was brilliant.
Right.
And then this one was great. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Absolutely. I said this last time about Listen, like you just said, and Robot of Sherwood. We said that finally there was a fun episode, and man, this is one of those episodes that I didn't even. It didn't occur to me that Capaldi was the Doctor in it. You know, all the other episodes I've sort of sat there like, okay, how is Capaldi going to face this scenario? And this is the first one I'm like, it could have been Matt Smith. It could have been David Tennant. Hell, it could have been Christopher Eccleston. This was just a good episode. Mm-hmm. It was well written.
Yep. This episode was co-written by Stephen Moffat, but it was mainly written by Stephen Thompson, I think.
The two Stevens.
And, yeah, even Stevens. And
nobody wants to be called.
And they did a really good job. I could see the Moffat touches on this one.
There were a couple of moments that felt very Moffat, and yeah, but overall, this was it's like when you watched Ocean's 11 for the first time, and you're like, wow, I never knew these actors together could do something this fun, and like this intricate, and that's exactly what this episode was. I didn't think Capaldi and Coleman could pull off something fun and exciting and really timey-wimey, because we're so used to Matt Smith doing timey-wimey. So, this was good. Yeah, no, it definitely was. I want to talk about just some fun moments at first, and then we'll get more to the serious stuff. But I really enjoyed the beginning, where we had sort of a little Danny and Clara moment at the beginning where he's asking her out on the date, and the kid walks in and they both go, out! Oh.
Now, as an educator myself, and my wife is also a teacher, there have been times when I would go to her classroom and, we have to, I want to give her a kiss. I have to be discreet. I don't want kids walking down the hall. I would just love to yell at a kid if he comes in the room. Out! It's just the best. And this episode was really funny too. There was a lot of funny moments in this.
One of the things that I really liked about that, I've seen a couple of reviews already online. People are really they're just like, oh, it was obvious, and who cares? But I like the idea of the architect. I like the idea that the Doctor was sending them on this mission, and he couldn't even tell them. So, for obvious reasons, with the teller, he couldn't tell him why they were on this mission. But I like the idea that the Doctor plays that dual role, and he's the Doctor. So who would he play if he had to be the architect of the situation? The architect. it's a very Time Lord kind of title to give himself, and that was a huge clue right off the bat, of course. But I don't know. I really like that. I like the idea of the Doctor having a pseudonym for sending himself onto missions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, it was the return of the memory worm.
Shall I get the memory worm? I love the memory worm.
That's great. Yes, I do too. I have to say, like, right when the theme song hit, I was like, ooh, like, I was so intrigued at the beginning.
Yeah, this was really fun.
I was hooked at the very beginning when they were listening to the message and they had each said, I agree to do this, I agree to do this, and they didn't remember, they didn't remember what had happened, and then all of a sudden they were already in the bank.
Okay, so this is...
And they were like, open up, I was hooked right away. I was like, this is going to be good.
Now, I will say this, though. I don't understand how they got into the bank in the first place.
Well, we don't remember that.
But that's what I'm saying is they were in the bank, right? So the whole idea was that they couldn't be in the bank and know what they were doing, because if they knew what they were doing, then the teller would know that something was wrong and would sniff them out. So they knew what they were doing. They went into the bank with a case with memory worms in it. Why would they go into... I mean, maybe they used a teleporter to get there, I don't know, but, how did they suddenly show up there and the teller not know right away? I thought as soon as you walked on the planet, they would, now...
Yeah, well, maybe he used the TARDIS, and then they got out, and the TARDIS then dematerialized and went to wherever it was in a spaceship or something,
Okay, well, all right,
so,
yeah. Somehow they got into that room and nobody knew. Fair enough.
Yeah. But just the whole,
How did he set up all those cases? Wait a minute.
I don't. That's another thing.
Did he use the TARDIS or the teleport from those teleports? Did he go into the bank to a whole bunch of places and put all of these little things or no? It'd have to be him, because the whole thing was the one. So somehow he goes in there.
He's the Doctor. He can do whatever.
All right. Well, but if he could do whatever he wants. I guess because they had to get everybody together to convince the teller that they were being honest to get him. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. So, I wanted to talk about the phone ringing on the TARDIS. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. They haven't used the ringing phone much in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. I've noticed, except for
they mentioned...
obviously.
Yeah, well, and they mentioned the woman in the shop this time. This is sort of our little through-line moment. Is this Missy? Is this whatever? It turns out it's something else, but they have this discussion. I guess Clara's the only one who has that number, or there's very few people, he says, that has that number.
Well, and if you remember back to Eccleston, even Eccleston said, why are you ringing? You're not a working phone. How are you ringing? So the fact that that phone would ring at all means that something important is going on.
Yeah. And that was a supernatural moment that it was ringing. He was communicating, the little boy was communicating through it. So this got me thinking, remember Martha? She had a cell phone.
Yeah.
She gave to the Doctor. I wonder if he just got rid of that. What do you think?
It was in the TARDIS, though. Last I checked, it popped out of the TARDIS during Journey's End and, hopped into his hand when the cell phone started ringing.
Well, yeah, but since then, do you think he said, well, I don't think Martha needs my help anymore, and he got rid of it, or do you think he still has it? I don't know.
I think he still has it.
You think so? Okay.
Because Unit probably has that number.
Yeah, yeah.
Then again, he's got their number. He's called from that phone several times in the Day of the Doctor.
Oh, you're right. It was a cell phone, wasn't it?
Well, no, in Day of the Doctor?
Yeah.
No, in the 50th, he called them from his TARDIS phone. He picked up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But he also got a call on it in The Snowmen when he was sitting there reading, and they had just given Clara the test. There was a phone in the actual TARDIS. Maybe he pulled the phone in. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. It just made me think of that sort of, how do you communicate with the doctor? How do you get in touch with him? Well, Martha had a cell phone, so that's what I was thinking about. I just thought that was an interesting sort of, I don't know, idea. Like, does he still have it, or what do you think? So
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Perhaps Missy has it. Oh.
We haven't seen her in a while. I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping I'd get to see her.
You miss her?
I miss her. I know. I just, we've seen her twice. And we haven't really got anything else yet. So I was kind of hoping for a little more hints, but we didn't really get much this time again. So they're in the bank.
Yes.
They're in the bank.
So they're in the bank, and they have to do basically one of the most clever bank robbing plots I've ever seen. I love heist films with a passion. I love them, and this is like all the good tropes of a heist film are there. The eclectic crew that you can't really trust because you don't know who they are. A job that they're not entirely sure what the job is for, other than they're looking for something, like trying to get something that they really want, money, documents, whatever. But in this, of course, is something specific to them. You've got breaking into the vault that has the world's most important security system known to man, most dangerous security system. I just loved it. God, I can't even. I'm gushing about this episode because it was.
It was good, and usually with heist movies, like The Italian Job, like I really loved it, but I don't feel like I could ever watch it again because I already know like what's going to happen. But with this had that element of I could watch this again and not be. I mean, yeah, I know the ending, but still, it was still enjoyable to watch because it was less about those cool moments, like where they do something cool with a car, or they do something cool with a switcheroo or something like that. It was less about that, and there was a lot of story in there also. Right. With the characters, which is good.
I liked the two characters, by the way.
I did too.
Sai and Sabrea?
It was like Sabra or something like that.
Yeah. They're kind of like the future version of the Paternoster Gang.
A little bit.
They are the cyberpunk gang. I don't know what it's called. Shapeshifter and man with computer in his head. Yeah.
If we know Stephen Moffat, and I think we do, we might see them again.
I hope so.
With
Craig and Stormageddon.
Yeah, sure.
That's all I'm asking. That's not too much to ask, right?
Little kid, like grown up Stormageddon. He's like a
kid. He could be the next companion on the TARDIS.
There you go. Perfect.
The doctor will just keep calling him Stormy, and he'll be like, "My name's not Stormy. It's Alphonse."
It's Alphonse.
He's like 14, really moody, kind of goth.
Yeah. Oh, perfect.
Just two grumpy people on the TARDIS.
Yeah. It's like, you don't understand me, Doctor. No one understands me.
What did you think of the teller?
I thought it was really interesting. Just from the photos alone, he didn't look that scary, but he was kind of creepy and scary in this one.
Right.
Sort of the whole turns your brain into soup thing. And it was almost a little of the what's that movie with Tom Cruise where they know you're going to do something?
Oh, Minority Report.
Minority Report, and then they arrest you for it.
Yeah. Well,
it was an interesting thought.
This movie had a lot of. It's cyberpunk. It had a lot of cyberpunk themes. It had the idea that it's a planet where free will doesn't exist. Basically, they know who you are, and only certain people should be there. So, being there and not having a reason to be there is a violation of the rules. It had a cop or an authority figure, essentially, which was, almost omniscient, that it knew what you were doing wrong and could read it out of your mind. It had characters who had cool powers like shape-shifting or a computer in the brain. Everything about this was very futuristic, very cyberpunky. I like that.
I really enjoyed the look of this episode a lot, and sort of all the props and the sets and things they were doing in the episode. The action they had to do. when they were like, give me the schematics of the building, and he put looked like just a USB port thing. He just put it on the wall, and then it projected onto the wall. That was really cool.
That was neat.
His whole thing with his, the computer in his brain and the little chip on the side of his head, that was really neat. I enjoyed that. And he recharged his batteries, plugged himself in.
He was getting low.
Yeah.
Getting tired.
One other trope that this movie had too was the so clever slow motion walk into the bank.
Yes.
I was like, come on, you guys are wasting time. And then like the teller came in and he slow-mo walked in.
You almost want everybody else to be moving at regular speeds, but the key characters from the episode are walking in slow-mo. And everyone else but why are they walking so slow? Must be main characters. Everybody just look around.
They're in the slow motion lane over there.
In the slow-mo lane.
You can only walk in slow-mo. One interesting thing about that scene where the teller's there and they're in the lobby, I guess it's the lobby, and they catch that one guy and he turns his brain into soup, and which was really creepy with his head all caved in. There was a moment where Clara is like, "Doctor, save him," and it was another one of these moments where the doctor's like, "No, he's dead already. There's nothing I can do," which is different. You know what I mean? Than what we're used to.
I'm wondering if all these, because we've seen that a couple times now. I'm wondering if that's one of those things. We've seen this a couple times now. We've seen this. It's almost every episode he's sort of given up on someone. And I'm wondering if that's not preparing us for him giving up on Danny Pink, giving up on Clara, giving up on, something important to him. If he's willing to give up all these things that aren't important, what's he willing to give up if it is important? So I'm wondering if we're going to get to, or if maybe at the end of the season there'll be that pinnacle moment where Clara will be lost and he says, "Not her, not this time." Yeah. Because they're building this.
Well, and they had this whole conversation about professional detachment, which I thought was a really interesting quote, a really kind of a cool line that it really kind of describes Capaldi's doctor and the way he's been acting. Yeah.
Well, why does he have her? What does she do? She's his carer. She cares for him.
Yeah. So he doesn't have to. Well, he cares, so she doesn't have to. I don't know. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
You're good at finding meaning in certain things. What was Clara's point in this episode? I don't really. I feel like it was a sad waste of her character in this episode because she really didn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? She was just kind of there.
I think there's more than just what I'm about to say. I think if you actually stop and kind of watch the episode, she had a reason for being there, and I think the reason for her being there was to keep him grounded. He needed her there, but I like to think the reason she was there goes all the way back to the very end. At the very end, when she walks out for her date, and he's like, beat that, Basically the final line is the doctor saying, "Ha ha ha, I'm a better date than you, buddy, any day of the week." And he knew from the very beginning she was going out, and he kept playing it up like she wasn't going out. He was asking her to come along. She's like, "Oh, look, I'm getting ready. Look at me, I'm getting ready." I think he brought her along, kind of to spite whoever she's going out with because he doesn't know him yet, and B, he did it to prove that he can always be a better date.
Yeah. I did like that moment at the end there. Sort of gloating, yeah.
Ha 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 ha.
Which is interesting, too, because I don't want to get into a discussion of shipping or anything, but, 11 and Clara, there was obvious flirting there, but once we got to Capaldi, it was like, no flirting, and, I'm not your boyfriend, and all this stuff. But now we get this, where he's like, beat that, the best date ever. Robbing a bank.
No, well, and I don't think it's a sexual thing. I don't think it's like...
No, I don't either. I don't think it's
like the flirting
romantic, but...
It's nothing like what... Well, and again, maybe this is another reason why I watched this episode. I'm like, Matt Smith could have been the doctor for this episode. So could Tennant, so could Eccleston. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it had to do with he needed to be number one in her life because he loves her.
Yeah.
Very much so. She's very important to him. She has saved his lives millions and millions of times, and he respects that. And he doesn't show his feelings. He's very closed off, and he doesn't like showing it to other people. He doesn't like showing other people that he cares. So I really think that this was it wasn't like, I'm a better date, like, you should still be with me. I think it was, I'm a better date, like, no matter who else you find in this universe, I'm always going to be the one who gives you adventure. I'm always going to be the one who opens your world to all these different things. No one can compete with my attention.
Yeah.
I think that's more what it was.
Yeah, and I've been seeing a trend, too, is he's been saying, I need you. For some, he's always saying, hey, Clara, I need you for something. I need you for this. I need you. Whereas, Matt Smith would be like, hey, you want to go do something fun or something? Like, oh, hey, I have this idea. Let's go do something fun. And then also, he's trying to solve the mystery of her.
Right. He might recognize
season 7.
He might recognize that she might not be as interested in traveling with him because there is no flirting, because there is not a relationship anymore. When he was Matt Smith, all he had to do was show his face up, and he's like, hey, let's go do stuff. And she was all ready to jump in the TARDIS and do it. But now he has to give her reasons. So maybe him coming in and saying, I need you, is a way to play on the fact that she's a bossy woman. She likes being in charge, and she needs to know that other people need her. So maybe that's why he does that. This is where Matt Smith manipulated her by being charming and flirting with her. Capaldi manipulates her by playing on her need to be needed.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just that Capaldi needs a young woman to make him feel young. I don't know.
Well, and we've been talking about Capaldi's, or 12's sort of character development, what he's going through. I've noticed that phrase a lot. Hey, I need you for this. I need you. Mm-hmm. He said, I need you for Into the Dalek and for Listen. He needed her a lot. And then in this one, he was like, hey, I need you. Hey, come with me. We got one short thing to do. I need you for this.
Yeah.
This bank heist.
And that builds into the where she's like, oh, but I've got a date. And he goes, no, I need you for this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So.
Did you notice the cameos of the villains when Sai was projecting all of those villains out so that to lead the teller away from them? There was some from like the Sarah Jane Adventures, like the Trickster that was in there, and then like our good buddy Crazy Bill Skaldak.
Bill Skaldak.
He was on there too.
The Gunslinger was there from A Town of Mercy.
Yes, I thought that was cool too. Yeah.
And I had to go back and rewatch it, and I wasn't sure. I looked this one up on Wikipedia because I swear I thought I saw him, but it was just like I wasn't entirely sure. But Captain John Hart from Torchwood was there.
Oh, cool! I didn't catch that.
I went back when I went back a second time to watch it, and I was like, oh, well, I know he's there. Something was there, and I couldn't pin. I thought I saw him, so I looked it up. Now I have to go back a third time just because I want to freeze frame it and be like, look. But yeah,
yeah.
I will say, just like all of these episodes, other than. I mean, a lot of these episodes don't have to go in order. That's something kind of unique for this season. Usually you have plot-specific episodes that come up right away. Most of these episodes seem like they could go in any place in the season. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that. Last season we had this whole Clara story. Well, we had the pawns at first, so that was... And we were a little confused about the order on those.
Yeah.
Which we kind of figured out.
Right.
One happened in the middle of another one.
Right.
But the rest of part 2 of season 7, it was all about this Clara mystery. So little by little, we got more answers. So there was kind of an order. Like it almost couldn't have gone any other way because once we got to Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, he learned a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And then, the episodes after that one, he kind of he obviously had that knowledge.
Well, they were very
Yeah.
linear in
Yeah.
season 7. Season 6, you could interchange a few of them, but not many.
Well, you would have to take out some of the Danny Pink date scene, like him at the beginning saying, "Oh, second date" and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you could switch these around. Into the Dalek could have been much later.
I'm just saying, people could
like
come
that.
into the season at any time, and I think they would enjoy it. I think they don't have to watch Deep Breath, then Into the Dalek, then Robot of Sherwood, then Listen, then Time Heist, and then they could sit down and say, "Man, I've never seen Doctor Who. I really want to watch something," and they could watch Listen, and they could go, "Oh, this is really interesting," or they could watch Time Heist and go, "Oh, this is fun." They don't have to see the others in order. Where a lot of the seasons you did, Eccleston's season almost entirely, you have to watch that in order, because if you start skipping, the first 6 episodes are in a row, and each one relates directly to the stuff right before it, even the 7th episode. So by the time you get to Father's Day in season 1 of Eccleston, you're like, Father's Day, now I don't have to watch anything in order. You kind of don't for a couple episodes, then it all just comes back in order again. So
Yeah.
Doctor Who's becoming less linear, I think, and maybe in the way they devise these stories.
Well, and I think that's where we're getting more of that classic Who vibe that they were bragging about so much before the season started. They're saying, "Oh, these episodes are feeling more like classic Who," and I think that's a big part of it, because in classic Who, it went from story. There was they kind of teased what the next story was going to be, so yeah, it was kind of linear. But if they hadn't done that,
Right.
you could have put those stories in any order; wouldn't have mattered.
I see the season 8, I feel, if you're relating it like that, say to classic Who, I'm relating it a little bit more to maybe Tom Baker's era or even Peter Davidson's era, where there were other things going on. Every episode would sort of open and close with people having a conversation about the same stuff. If it was Davidson, his first season, he was trying to get Tegan home. Every single story, it always opened with her going, "So have you found a way to land me at Heathrow yet?" And he's like, "I don't know. Let me try this. Oh, I think I've landed." And they go, "Well, that's not it." And then they'd have an adventure, and then they come back at the end of it, and they'd be like, "Now what?" So I feel like these are kind of like that, where it's like there are these little drop-ins. Season 6 did a little bit of that with the after the plot-heavy episodes at the beginning of season 6. Then you got a whole bunch of episodes that you could watch them however you wanted. The Pirates, or the Doctor's Wife, or the ones with the gangers, except for the little bits leading, at the beginning or end, talking about, who what was going on with the pregnancy, or, after that, after A Good Man Goes to War and Let's Kill Hitler, there were like 4 in a row. You could just sort of watch how.
Yeah, there was the kid having the bad dreams, and then there was
And then season 7 started picking up the way everyone was their own story. Everyone was its own little mini movie. So you watch Asylum of the Daleks, but then you could watch. You didn't have to watch Dinosaurs on a Spaceship next. You didn't have to watch A Town Called Mercy next. You could kind of watch them out of order, except for The Angels Take Manhattan. And then the Clara stuff kind of broke that down a little bit, because they started giving us more about Clara, but like who she was and what the story was. But I don't know. It feels like you can watch a lot of them out of order, and I like that. I like that a lot.
I do too. All right, so I have a bone to pick with whoever did this. I want to know.
Uh-oh.
Okay, was it Stephen Thompson? Was it Stephen Moffat? Was this a Capaldi thing that he decided to throw it into left field? I have to know, because it's a travesty.
Oh dear God, what's wrong?
The episode is called Time Heist.
Yes.
Capaldi says, this isn't just a bank heist, it's a time travel heist. I went, no! What are you doing? It was the perfect moment for a titular line, and he ruins it.
Did he say time travel heist?
Yes, he goes, it's a time travel heist. And I said, no, you're supposed to say time heist. I was like...
Yes, but if he had said it that way, I would have had a bone to pick about it and been like, really?
Like I stubbed
we
my
had to
toe.
say, we
so
have
bad.
a title,
like, oh.
everybody. Woohoo! Ladies and gentlemen, we have a title. That's terrible when they do that.
I like it.
It's like if they got to Trenzalore and they're like, what are we doing in the TARDIS? What we're doing is saving my friends. because they need not know the name of the doctor. Dun dun dun. or if in the one episode they're on the pyramid and they're like, now what? All those stars, they're not stars blowing up. There are a million voices saying, yes, we'll help you. And he turns around and he goes, what do you expect me to do? Have a wedding of river song? Dun dun dun. Like, they're so cheesy if they do those things, and I don't like it when they do those things.
Well, yeah, but time heist is just 2 words. And
yes, it is. That would have been a perfect moment for that pun. You are correct.
It's not just a bank heist. It's a time travel heist. Oh, God. It was so bad.
It's like somebody wanted to make that joke, but they didn't pull the trigger on it. They were like, no, pull it back. Put travel in there.
Or maybe that was the point. It was to make you go, oh, he's going to say it, and then he doesn't say it. That could have been it, too.
I did like that they zoomed in on him, and the music swelled to a beautiful crescendo.
You're right. Time travel heist.
Time travel heist.
No, it's time heist. And you have to say it like that, too. It's just like that.
Time heist.
Time heist.
Good.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite... I laughed so hard at this. One of my favorite lines is when they get to the end, they get to the vault, and they find out that, Miss Del Fox is she makes clones and then she burns them, and that was interesting. It was like, okay, whatever. But then the teller gets down there, and he's like, okay, scan my thoughts so I can remember. And he's scanning his thoughts. He goes like, yes, look. And he's like, see, there's so many memories. Big scarf, bow tie, a bit embarrassing. And then he says, what do you think about the new look? I was going for minimalist, but I think it came out magician. I laughed so hard. Oh, and it's one of those where I'm watching it with headphones in, and everyone else is like talking, having a good time, and then I just burst out laughing in the middle of silence. Oh man, I loved it.
I like the self-referential stuff. He's quoted himself a bunch.
This episode had a lot of it. It had a lot of like sort of attacks on his appearance in this one. A lot of mentions of it. Like at the one point they ask, like, why are you still in charge? He's like, basically the eyebrows.
Basically the eyebrows.
So they did a lot of that. They did a lot of
David Tennant did that in the library episode. They're like, why are you taking orders from him? And he goes, spooky, isn't it? Just kind of referencing that, yeah, people generally do.
Yeah. Or I liked the other line, too, where she was like, yeah, what he said, why are you in charge? He said, it's my superpower. What's yours? That was good, too. And, of course, team not dead. That was, like, one of the best lines.
Not dead.
Come on, team not dead.
The only other thing, I love that there were clones in this. I love that Carabraxis was Miss Del Fox. I miss clones. Like I like that as a science fiction thing. You don't see a lot of it. It's probably good you don't see a lot of it, but like when they had the gangers and you didn't know which doctor was which. I always thought there should have been more gangers in season 6. Like more people should have shown up as gangers.
I think there should have been more Miss Del Foxes. Like she kept showing up, but and then you've come to find out later that they've been talking to different Miss Del Foxes the whole time or something. I think that would have been a neat.
Oh, that would have been and like 3 or 4 of them walk out of a door.
Yeah, well, they kind of know. Like the doctor maybe kind of notices, like, how'd you get here so fast? Like how'd you get to this part of the building so fast?
Did you change your shirt?
Yeah, he kind of keeps noticing the little things like that, and then eventually, when they get down to the basement, they find out they're clones, and then you see her talk. She talks to them, and you see there's a whole bunch of them.
They definitely missed out on. This episode could have been longer. I think I honestly could have watched a 2-hour version of this.
Yeah, that would have been a better. I think that would have been a better execution of that.
Yeah,
that device. Yeah. But I still enjoyed it. I think it was funny that the whole she burns her own clones, and that was like
fire.
That was
incinerate them.
This
was this was a decent episode. I'm so glad that I got a chance. I'm so glad this was in there. I'm glad they didn't nix this one. I'm glad this was an idea they were playing around with. I love when the Doctor does genre-based episodes, and that's definitely what this is. This was a heist film. Sometimes he does survival horror. Sometimes he does, like a zombie invasion. Sometimes he does, the claustrophobic. Is everything real or is it really fake? This was the perfect thing to pull from. And if you start thinking about fun movies, there needs to be a great space race movie episode, or like Death Race.
That would be cool.
Or there needs to be an episode about I don't even know, like good movies that I'm trying to think. They just did the heist movie. They need to do a detective noir story. He needs to be Sherlock Holmes in an episode. Like, that would be fun. Yeah. I like when they do genre episodes.
Yeah, that was really neat. The one thing about this episode, and we mentioned it because we were talking about them being in order, I feel like this one could have been later, and only because they did the time loop thing again. Like, we just saw the time loop thing in Listen. And it was a little redundant seeing it again in the next episode. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but this was a much more condensed version of it. This was within an hour. Those are like when the Doctor was 6. Time loop.
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
It was a long time ago.
Well, he was probably 90 or something.
When he was just a kid, yeah. What? No, it was before the Academy. Before they took him to the Untempered Schism.
Oh,
so
you're right.
He's got to be... He's probably, again, kid. He's probably, 10 or 11. But
that's one of the things in this show that I want an answer to is when he's in the first regeneration, or the first body... He starts off as a baby, and then he grows up to be a kid. How long does that take? How many hundreds of years does it take to turn into an old man? Do you know what I mean?
Well, and here, think of it this way. Here's our context clues. Hartnell, did Hartnell give us the age? Did he say he was several hundreds of years? He said he was centuries old?
Well, yes, and then
Troughton
said he was 400 years old at one point.
So we can assume that in every regeneration, even though we don't see the adventure, there's maybe decades of adventures in between the stories, where he goes off and does stuff, and time mixes it and stretches it, and kind of makes it make more sense. But so if Hartnell, when he's an old man, as we see him, I guess. But Hartnell is several hundreds of years old. The Doctor has said he sealed a rift in time and space when he was just a kid, 90 years old. So we know 90 is young for Gallifreyan children. Okay? Or for Time Lords. I don't know if for Gallifreyan children, but for Time Lords. The Master talks about when he was a child being taken to the Untempered Schism. He looks out into the Vortex, and that's what drove him mad. And we physically see sort of a flashback for the Master, and it's a child, it's a kid. He's no more than 11 or 12 years old that we would see him as. So the Academy doesn't accept you until you're of a certain age. You decide to go off to the Academy to train to be a Time Lord. So I'm going to assume that's about 90 years old. The whole sealing a rift in time and space, that probably happened about the time that the Doctor was at the Academy, or going to the Academy. Maybe he did that to get into the Academy. Maybe they require you to do some great thing or perform.
Homework.
Yeah. Wow, there's an anime, Full Metal Alchemist. Same thing. To become a state alchemist, you had to perform something they had never seen before. So maybe it's an entrance exam. So maybe that's what that was. So we can assume when we see kids on Gallifrey, children, that they're probably within their first 100 years.
Yeah.
But then Hartnell was kind of old for being 200-300 years.
Right.
Old looking.
But here's another thing too. The War Doctor, he started off young, because in the Night of the Doctor, a little mini-sode, we see his reflection. He's kind of young, John Hurt, and then he turns into Gramps. So,
well, and keep in mind the physical.
So maybe Hartnell had gone through something. You know what I mean?
Well, but the
sort of made
physical
him look old.
representation of what they look like, each regeneration picks a face. It has absolutely nothing to do with how old or young they are. Hartnell could have looked that old for a century. You know, that could have just been what he wanted his face to look like. He could have just grown old to look old.
Well,
When
sure.
he got too
I'm just wondering
old,
how he went from kid to that. You know what I mean?
could have happened in 10 years. Could have happened in 100. We
Right.
don't know. But it
I know, that's what I'm
happened
saying. I
somewhere
want
in there.
answers.
Oh, okay.
You know, but
Right.
how did that happen? How did John Hurt get old so fast? I mean, was it just from being in war? And then, you know, Matt Smith got old too. He was the only doctor to sort of do that. I mean, it took a couple thousand years.
But we gotta ask how old... Well, we gotta ask how old the Doctor was when he regenerated into Hurt's War Doctor. Don't we? Because how old was... Okay, so Sylvester McCoy's Doctor would have been 600, 700?
600 something. 9 said he was
No,
9.
hold on. They've said that the War Doctor was about 600 and something. It's written somewhere in one of the books. They did that War Doctor book. He talks about being like 668 years or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So roughly 300 years of war doctory,
exactly.
Time War stuff. Yeah.
Because Eccleston is 900 years old, 901, 902. So he tells Rose. And then, you know, then we get it to like 908 is Tennant. So a very short amount of time for Tennant.
Yeah.
And then Smith is about 1100 when he goes to Trenzalore, and he's there until he's almost 2,000 years old. He's there for a long time.
Yeah. Well, and Matt Smith was from the whole of season 6. He goes and does he does his own little farewell tour.
900 to 1100.
He goes from being 900 and something to being 11. Yeah, you're right. To being about 1,000.
And then he tells the other two that he's about 1,200 when he's in the Day of the Doctor. So we know when he goes to Trenzalore, he's about 1,200 or 1,300 years old. He then stays on Trenzalore until he's 2,000.
Yeah.
It's a long
So it's just
time.
I'd like some kind of hints or answers about the aging process of a Time Lord.
700 years? He's on Trenzalore for 700 years.
Yeah.
That is a long time. And then he has the gall to ask if one of the kids is Bartleby? Really, dude? It's been like
Well, he's
700 years. You think they lived that long?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Interesting.
This conversation really should have been on the last podcast, but that's okay. I'm glad we got it in somewhere.
Time Heist.
Time Heist. Okay, let's see. The last thing I had for Time Heist was the monsters. You know, when he was in the straitjacket, it didn't hit me, but then when they were out in the field, I was like, oh, it's those things
Yeah.
that we saw in the shooting, you know, the shooting pictures, the behind-the-scenes pictures, way back last summer.
Right.
That's what those things were.
I did the same thing.
And then did that little thing remind you of Hyde, too? It reminded me of Hyde, like the two monsters, and then they got together at the end.
Oh, yeah. Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so sweet.
Was that one written by Moffat?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's hard to remember which ones he's written inside of his own seasons.
Yeah. It's easy in Russell T Davies era, but
Right.
well, that's all I had for this one. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I think this is going to be one of those that I go back and watch a whole bunch. I love them when they're fun, and this was definitely fun. Mm-hmm. This is exactly the level of fun you expect from Doctor Who. So
yeah, I really enjoyed this one too. I feel like there were a couple of things they could have delved into a bit more. Like we barely got to see any of the the mutant power stuff. I mean, she did it a couple of times. It would have been cool to see her do it a little bit more. The whole clone thing we talked about, they could have executed that, I think, a little bit better. It would have been more enjoyable. But otherwise, pretty solid story and pretty fun, too. And a lot of good humor. You know what? I really love the humor in Doctor Who, and that's one of the things that if an episode really doesn't have some good one-liners and some good jokes in it, it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. I need that humor too, and this one...
Doctor Who is very funny.
Yes, it's very, very funny, and this one had it.
Witty, very clever.
Yes.
Final thoughts. Yeah, really loved it. Anyone out there, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you've seen the episodes, so you already know. But this is going to be on my list of episodes to rewatch once a year. I don't know what the event will be. Every Christmas, I watch the Christmas Carol episode, and I try to watch the Snowman episode because it's really good. And, probably Time of the Doctor now as well. So this might
maybe
have
like
to this
Labor
might have
Day
to be like,
or something.
Which one?
I said maybe like Labor Day or something. You could watch
This and Die Hard.
There you go.
And Ocean's 11.
Time Heist.
Well, guys, that brings us actually to a very special version of my favorite piece of the podcast, because this isn't just, oh my god, that promo.
Oh my god, the promo.
This is, oh my god, that promo times 2.
Oh my god, those promos. There were 2
promos.
There was one after
similar.
the episode, and then there was one that came out the next day, and with a little more info. I did not realize when they said caretaker that meant janitor. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah,
it must be a difference in British to American term.
Yeah, I recently watched a Ricky Gervais show on Netflix, and one of the guys is the caretaker of the nursing home, and he's basically the janitor. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's caretaker sounds more official, but like a more official job he would have at the nursing home. But
engineer,
janitor. Yeah. Which is kind of funny if you think back to the Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. He was the caretaker of
the house.
So he was the janitor of the house.
Supposed to keep it clean.
Yeah,
that actually makes certain jokes from that episode make more sense.
Yeah, well, it's more. He's more. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's so much janitor as it is maintenance man.
Right.
Because they fix it. Because the other show I was watching, he fixed almost. He was always fixing something. So here in America, if someone is the caretaker of a place, it's not a maintenance man as much as it might be the person who runs the place. They might be a maintenance man, but they're also in charge of the entire facility. So yeah, I think of we don't use the term a lot, but I think like the caretaker of like an orphanage or something,
right? Or a nurse.
I think of the guy who runs the orphanage as the caretaker of the orphanage. Like that's what I think of it as.
And I guess if I sat down and thought about it, they do maintenance too, but that's not really their role.
Yeah. But we're talking about the linguistics of the word caretaker. Okay. I
love the promos.
The promos. So, okay, this episode is supposed to be really funny, from what I've heard. It's supposed to be sort of like the lodger. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited for that.
He has to try and fit in somehow.
Yes.
Why would he have to fit in? The headmaster of the school knows him.
Oh my god, I'm so hoping for this. And I don't think it's going to happen because they haven't even teased it or anything. I feel like they would have announced it. They would have been like, "Hey, William Russell's going to be guest starring on Doctor Who once again. It's going to be a big deal." I don't think they would keep it a secret. So I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if we'll see good old Ian Chesterton, but
I doubt we'll see Chesterton.
But that would be so great. Maybe there'll be a little nod or something, or a little little reference, but
oh yeah, no, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
Actually, I would even bet that he'll actually describe that to what's her face, to Clara, like talk about his past companions. He'd have to.
Mm-hmm. To
explain why that school is because he's been there several times now.
Yes,
in his history.
Yeah. That would be a big missed opportunity, I think, if they didn't. Some things in the promo, the little robot thing. you know, this episode's supposed to be funny, but there's the line too, is like, are the children safe? He says, no one's safe.
Right.
But then the robot seems a little kind of silly, almost. You know, he's like, destroy.
Sort of a reject Dalek.
Yes. Exterminate. No, wait, that's been done. Destroy.
Destroy. Obliterate. Eviscerate.
Get rid of. Get rid of.
End the life for.
So, yeah. And there's one line in one of the promos that's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. It's Danny Pink, and he says, like, you're from space or something.
John.
We don't know who he's talking to. Is he talking directly to the Doctor? They kind of, you know, cut it up to where it looks like he says it and then the Doctor gasps or something. But, you know, that could be just the way the promo's cut.
It could be.
Could be. But maybe this is where they meet. Obviously, they're going to meet for the first time. But then also, you know, is Danny going to find out who the Doctor is? Is this where he starts traveling with them? That'll be interesting because it's basically the introduction of a new companion,
right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I would like that. I would like very much so for Danny to travel with them. I think I've missed having. I mean, I know Rory was there, so excuse me when I say this line, but I missed having a dude in the TARDIS. Rory was. He's a cool guy.
Mainly because when we make the posters, then one of us doesn't have to be the girl.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be great.
It's incidentally the poster that they put up for this one. It has Danny Pink in it. So,
well, there you go. Perfect.
And actually, I think he does start traveling with them because just looking at the cast list on Wikipedia, Danny Pink is listed on the next few episodes.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Or at least on the next episode. There's just not.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had for the promo. If you can think of anything else for the promo. We're getting the absolute worst trailers this season. We said this, yeah. Literally. They give you nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And it's not even fair. It's like, come on, guys. Just a little something. But I will say this. I'm loving that these promos have the I Am the Doctor theme.
Yes, I have noticed that. I was going to call you and tell you about that. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it on the podcast, but yeah, the I Am the Doctor theme, 11th Doctor sort of theme, is there.
Which is nice.
Yeah,
there was some music in the episode that was very reminiscent of something. I can't remember where, but I really liked it. And good.
It's a good. I'm sure we'll look back and we'll. I don't think we've quite gotten like 12's theme yet. You know what I mean? But I think we'll look back and say, "Oh, there it was. It was playing there, and it was playing there. We just didn't really catch it." And once we know what it is, you know, we'll hear it again. So, so yeah. Well, Matt, good buddy.
Yes, sir.
I think we're done.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to our wonderful podcast. This was the episode Time Heist. Next week is Time Heist. Next week is the Caretaker. Join us Friday next week for the Caretaker. And you know what? As always, I agreed to do this of my own free will.
Yes, if you'll not excuse us, we need to go back in time and tell ourselves to do the podcast.
We are the architects of the podcast.
We are the architect.
Hey, have a good day, guys.
Yeah. Time Heist.
Time.
Voices from the Vortex is written, edited by, and starring Taylor Davidson and Matthew Whitecamp.
With Danielle Davidson as the sexy voice of the TARDIS.
Theme music composed by Brian Worst.
Visit our website, www.broadcastgallifrey.com.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for an enhanced podcast experience.
Follow us on Twitter, @Vortex Podcast.
Like us on Facebook.
Follow us on Tumblr and Google+.
Subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you like what you've heard, leave a review.
Ask us a fan question through any of these media, and we'll answer it on the podcast.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned to the Vortex.